So when boundaries are crossed, what is truly activated inside me are my values. So what I'm about to share with you is not something that I learned in any kind of classes, or I was not trained in this way in any of the different cuddling spheres or trainings. Like, this is mine. And it's going to be, again, somewhat controversial, but that's me. If you know me, you know that I kind of do the non-conventional. And what really shows up for me are my core values. So if you come and see me in a session, what I'm attempting with you is for you to get to know who you are, figure out what you want, and to learn how to ask for that thing. So in no way does it support me to shame you, to make you wrong for what you're experiencing. And when a boundary is crossed, it does not activate in me survival or a need to really protect myself. I often feel very strong in who I am, so I'm not concerned with my safety. Now, that's not everyone. So if you're listening to this and when you experience a boundary crossing and suddenly you're just really activated and it's challenging, there's trauma shows up and all of that, it's completely legitimate and valid that you're having that experience, and you need to take care of yourself. So do what you need to do to get out of an unsafe situation. So what I'm about to share is definitely my personal MO, how I do this, and to take what works and leave the rest behind. But if you do come and see me, I'm also not looking for you to come and break my boundaries, okay? Please don't just come and be like, I'm gonna that would be totally uncool. And then you'll understand why as I kind of explain where I'm going with this. Okay, so sometimes when somebody does something that's, like I've said, these are the areas that are off limits, and let's say you're a first-time client, right? And you start going into those areas, I'll just move your hand, or I'll say, hey, that part's off limits, or hey, I just want to remind you that, that's not a part we're touching, kind of thing. And again, most people are super respectful. I don't think I've ever fought with anyone or had any kind of difficulty. They are reminded, and they're like, yeah, okay, yeah, I just got carried away. And totally understandable. Every once in a while, though, and this is kind of where this video is going, I will allow things to go further. And I'm looking for information. I want to understand what is at the heart, really, where is that client? What are they looking for? What are they wanting? And if I stop it right at the first, let's say, touch, then I don't get that information I'm looking for. So we can have a deeper conversation as to who they are, what they want, and how to get what they want. So let's say in this case, I see a client who has come to see me a few times, 3 to 5 times. So I've gotten to know them a little bit. I have an idea. And in the last session, let's say it escalates a little bit more. There's more sensual touch and there's more sexual touch. So in the last time this happened, I waited till near the end of the session to say something. Now, there's actually 2 different options. I've actually done this. One time, let me think real quick. Okay, so let's say in this case, I waited to the end of the session, and we have about 5 minutes left, 5-10 minutes left, and I say I'd like to take the rest of the time to discuss how the session went. And it's so funny because there is this very physical and almost sometimes auditory of oh, yeah. And again, multiple times I've done this, and one time I said, so did you notice some of the things that you did? And they're like, so one option would be would you tell me more about the things that you did in the session that were maybe different, or can you tell me more what you noticed? And there was one client, this was actually a while back, who was I was moving my hips. I mentioned your hip movement was different this time. And they're like, yeah, I was moving my hips more. And I go, so can you tell me more about that hip movement? And that sounds funny, but it is just keeping it very neutral. Again, not right or wrong, good or bad, just, hey, tell me more about that hip movement you're doing. And they, they're like, yeah, you know, it's just remembering, you know, just really looking into, like, I really would like to have sex, you know, something like that. Like, I really would like to be in a more intimate kind of a situation. And I'm like, yeah, I got that. That's clear, buddy. And in another session, I did something a little bit different. I went right into what my bigger concern is. I said, you know, I know you're coming to see me, but let's just say we're going to go see another professional cuddler. I want you to know that the experience that we just had together is not a cuddling session. This is not that. So please, like, I'm always very concerned. Like, please, if you go somewhere else, don't assume that what you got today is going to be what you can have anywhere else. Someone who does professional cuddling, because this is not a professional cuddling thing. And now I need to discuss with you kind of what happened. And it's funny because they know. They're like, yeah, I know this wasn't a cuddling session. I'm like, yeah, it really wasn't. So this time I asked, so can you tell me the parts that were not professional cuddling? I put it on them to tell me. That was interesting because they could name the things, right? They could say, I was kissing your face a little bit more than usual. I attempted to touch your chest. I was touching your behind. Sometimes, like, they'll notice their breathing is different. There's definitely like an excitement, an acceleration, very clear. And then I said, well, there's one more. I'm like, oh. And I said, do you remember using your groin area to rub on me? And they're like, oh, yeah. I didn't think you noticed. And I'm like, which is really funny in many ways, because this has happened more than once, that people that have frontal genitalia often don't, like, we know what you're doing with your hips, right? Like, we know, I'm getting that energy. I know what's happening. Also, as I've mentioned in other videos, like, erections are totally, like, valid and, like, they come and go. But also, I don't know if I've ever said this in one of those videos, I can feel them, right? Even though I ignore them and I don't, you know, give them any attention, I can feel it, yo. So, I know when they're there and it's fine. It's just that in this case, there was hip movement and there was kind of more of a grind and there was desire to experience more sensation. And sometimes the positions can be more leaning towards sexual positions than not. And I'm like, okay, you know, again, all of this, I wanted it to kind of ride. With this particular client, I experience a lot of his innocence and his love and it's a truly innocent, genuine, authentic desire of being in his body. And so there, again, no interest in making it wrong or shaming. Like, that doesn't belong at all with who he is. It's so I knew that I felt safe and I knew that allowing it to move forward could create an opportunity. So then I said, this is the next key question. I don't believe you want a cuddle session. Are you looking for something else? And it's like, yeah, I am. I'm like, okay, so, like, then tell me, what is it that you're looking for? You know, like, then I get the story like, oh, I just haven't had sex in a while and it's been a long time and I don't have a partner and I'm really missing that part of being human, being in that relationship stuff. And then we can talk about, okay, cool. Let's then talk about what are the obstacles to dating, finding a partner, you know, what's it been like in the past? And this moves into kind of a coaching session in some ways. We didn't have a lot of time to go into depth into this, but then we get into that, like, how do you access more sensual and sexual experiences that can work for you? And it is complicated. It's not just like a conversation is going to fix it all, but here we are, at least bringing it to the surface. Like, this is okay to talk about. It's okay to go and figure out how to meet your needs. Your needs are valid. You are loved. You are wanted, and it's who you are. There's nothing wrong that happened in terms of like, how do I just make this distinction? Like as a person, as a human, nothing. It wasn't appropriate for the space we had decided on, and what was created in that space. Again, I allowed, so it is on me. I'm responsible for it, and I used it. And I guess if I'm really honest, those of you who are big on checking me on things, which I do appreciate, he didn't consent, like we didn't consent mutually consent to then me studying him. If you really want, like he didn't really consent to doing therapy in that moment. I get that, like, so right. So that happened. I wanted to submit to having that conversation. And then I asked the questions, and he was willing to go along with that conversation. So in the end, what I truly want though, and anyone who comes and sees me, this is my heart. I want us to discover what is it that you need, what is it that you want. I want you to feel fulfilled in getting those needs met, and at the same time, in meeting those needs, I get to consent what I do and with my body. And so if we're doing a cuddle session, that's what I hope for us to experience. If you want something else, then we can discuss the possibilities of how you can get those needs met. And I prioritize having these conversations because this is when we can really start to grow and change as in how we do relationships in the world. And it's also interesting that their bodies really show me who they are. Their bodies will tell me what they want, and then we can talk about it. So what are some of the, like, just to kind of throw some things out there, those of you who are like, well, how would you break this down? Like, what kind of things are out there that I could access, or, whatnot. So there's, of course, professional cuddling. Of course, there's like sensual things that exist in the world, and there's massage, that's something you want. People often ask me, like, do you do massage? And I'm like, no, that is a lot of work. I do not want to do massage. So yeah, there's massage. And if I do massage, it's very unique situations that I will do that. There exists the possibilities out there is like skin on skin or nude experiences. You have, I'm sure there's romantic, where you can experience a more romantic session. There's sexual things out there in the world, or, again, we can discuss like how do people experience sexual experiences in our community. And there are, again, all sorts of different things. And of course there's kink. Having transparency and integrity and communication, really my priority. And all of that wrapped up in a lot of care and affection and understanding that you're having a human experience, and that it's difficult to navigate all this stuff in a world where we're not allowed to talk about it, or we feel like we're repressed to talk about it, and a lot of shame in being who we are. So if you come to me for cuddling, hopefully that's what we're gonna do. And I have other modalities that we work in those other things I listed. Those are possible with a lot of care, in like my retouch, rehabilitative touch therapy, and also in surrogate partner therapy that uses a therapist as part of the working team. And you can explore things that you can't explore in professional cuddling. So, okay. I hope that helped explain. And I answered this question because somebody asked me, like, what do you do when there's breaking boundaries? This is my tendency. All right. Mwah.